So you spoke about books there. What kind of other resources would you provide to use as a source of support for improving speech therapy services within the prison system?
Okay, so yeah, books are definitely part of it. The kinds of books really matter. So if we're working in the prison system, or in fact anywhere where we're teaching adults or children to read, then having reading materials that are at a level that they can decode efficiently and easily is really important. So we call these kinds of books decodable readers. And what we mean by that is that that they are written at a language level that is that is easy for the person to be able to figure out efficiently. So if somebody is just at the point, and I remember working with one of my guys in prison who was at that time in his mid-20s, and we just got him to the point where he could produce, or he could read, what we call CVC words. So that's consonant, vowel, consonant. So a word like jet, and he could figure that out. And then, I'd give him another word like, I don't know, ram, and he could figure that out. So he's just at that level of being able to look at words with three sounds and three letters and figure it out. And so what he would need are books that only have those kinds of words in them, joined obviously by the and those other little grammatical words that we need to make a sentence, but word books that are especially written so that they only include those kinds of words that reader can successfully decode for themselves, because then they get practice at doing that decoding and they get the genuine success of reading the book. And so these decodable readers are really important at all of the different levels of reading as people are going up through the levels from that CVC early entry level through to, through to more complex reading. Decodable books really matter because they allow the person reading them to be successful. And the best way to have practice that brings us joy, that keeps us going, that gives us motivation, you and I know this in whatever our endeavors are, is to be able to be successful and to be able to gain that success independently and knowing how and why you were successful. So these kinds of books are really important. And because people are so varied and are interested in so many things, we need huge range of these kinds of books across a big variety of topics, so that people are not so that people get to choose. There's some choice about the kind of topic area that they're reading in, but they're practice tools. It doesn't mean that they're going to be reading that kind of book as literature in their futures, but they're practice tools for being able to gradually get better at the skill of reading. So that's really important. Other than that, I think often reading to people is important as well. Listening to audiobooks, if people are inclined to. Some people find listening to audiobooks can be challenging, and that can be related to the neurodevelopmental differences that they might be born with. It might be that processing language, coming at you auditorially, just one word after another is actually tricky. People might have working memory weaknesses through no fault of their own, so they can't hold spoken information in memory long enough to be able to process it, to get all the meaning out of it before they've forgotten it. And that is not their fault, and it's not that they're not paying attention. It's that at a cognitive level, their working memories may be weaker, and it's just harder for them to listen to audio books. But having somebody read to them in dignified ways, I still love it if somebody reads to me. So, that's not an age-related thing. Then, that can be really great as well, because it can be part of building language. One of the very key things that we always are interested in doing is building people's emotional vocabulary. So if we've got a word for something, an emotional experience, then we can understand that emotional experience much more powerfully, because we've got a word is like a little tool that is in our minds, and we can manipulate that tool in order to have more fully processed and understood and worked through what it might mean for us to have that emotion. Whereas when we have a more limited emotional vocabulary, we might just know, angry and sad and happy, and then we're kind of turned on for 3 emotions. That's it. Whereas when we've got that finer grade of emotional words, we can actually experience and manage in ourselves and regulate in ourselves more sophisticated emotional response. So actually giving people emotional vocabulary is really important. And that means teaching it to them. So if people, are like those young people, some of those young people that Pam Snow's had the privilege of assessing over the years, and their language level is lower through no fault of their own, then we actually want to teach them these words. And so that means being in relationship and connecting and having scenarios and reasons that these words might be relevant, creating those scenarios, sharing stories, and practicing using those words. And, that takes time, but it's time that's well worth putting in.